in fact, if all collectively, if I can probably look at, three things very predominantly is emerging. That is it a compliance issue because government has asked for 2%? That is one straight thing that is coming on. Second, the leaders' conviction. I mean, leaders transpiring the throughout the organizational culture so that organizations do and adopt and do things which goes beyond the mandate, and probably the financial metrics don't account it out. And the third, probably out of this compliance mindset, there is expenditure and KPI based thing that these things needs to be tick boxed upon. So that becomes probably a minimalist compliant mindset that might emerge. But the fourth that we probably see that what societal needs are. Does it essentially have to align with what corporate's core capabilities or competencies are, or it can also go beyond the mandate and you don't have to be doing everything as it comes like. So in your own experience individually, probably in the next set of interactions with you all, for a very brief insight that I will look forward from each one of you, your personal take on the leaders, the employees and the CSR team and the larger society, who actually picks up what society needs, what needs to be done, and what are the mechanisms through which it transpires beyond leader, or maybe how if CSR team finds something it needs to be done, how it reaches to leader. So maybe a top-down trickle effect, or versus bottom-down, bottom-up something going up to the. So probably two different mechanisms to look at how social responsibilities can be fulfilled in organizations. And this time I'll start from my end, if you allow me.
Yeah. See, I think it's not about what happens in my company or anywhere, but this is what I have noticed is many a times we don't open up what are the problems of the society. There's no like a ticketing system or a kind of a dropbox where, okay, these are the problems, right? So I see that you continue to fund the same organization every now and then, right? So there is a separate team that looks into all these things, and the employees only are asked to kind of do what is already been pre-decided, kind of a thing, right? So uh, the, I don't really think there is a lot of inclusivity that is there in the whole ecosystem to people who have already said, right, it's a playbook that has been designed, deployed, and it continues to operate as a separate entity, more like a compliance. So I wouldn't say it is a top down or a bottom up. It's a separate loop in itself that happens in most of the organizations that I know, because a good friend of mine runs a platform who bridges the supply and the demand, right? So that's what I got to learn.
Yeah. So in terms of when you say need point of view, there are so many needs which can be done. Most important thing what I feel is what I've learned so far is about consistency. Even if you pick one problem in the society, you may not be able to solve everything under CSR. You may not be able to do everything. Little bit of everything may not give you a holistic picture. Even if you pick up one single problem and try to focus on that problem long term and sustain. Say, for example, education is one thing which we can give it to everybody in your free time, free of cost or whatever it is, or sponsor that or do something there, so that the more the society is educated, you are making a self-sustainable individual and a family at a later date. Probably if you can work individually on one single thing, whichever you pick up, I'm not saying education is the only thing, whichever you pick up, do it consistently over a period of time to actually see the impact. And that's what I've learned in the last few years, where you focus on one particular thing so that it impacts larger part of the society and the economy. Yeah, okay. That should be there.
One second. I think I'll go back to our core vision, right? Our core vision is basically to create order. I'll tell you why. We've lost the MSME battle. We're not taking care of the smaller company. It's very important that we focused on entrepreneurship. So every year, we made sure that there were successful entrepreneurs at the rural level, at the city level, at certain poverty levels where we could actually enable them. And then we noticed that 10% of these companies actually did well. And then they come back and start participating. So it's become self-sustaining. in many ways. And we can actually see the money that we put in actually multiply. And we can actually measure it. So I basically think India has to double its per capita GDP. And the only way you can do that is through MSME innovation, because they will hire people. That's also a huge concern today. So if you start thinking that way and multiple companies come together and they're able to solve problems by connecting the dots, that's basically going to help us. Today, it's still very isolated, as the gentleman before told. Everyone's doing their bit, but can we connect it? Can we basically say that this becomes the backbone of India and India is developed? That's very, very important. So the entire mind psyche should change. We should be part of the change and we should continue to push it.
Wonderful. In fact, that one statistics very interestingly I was last year referring to. If a person who gets 3 years of education more, it adds a significant percent to the GDP of a nation. Productive education leads to more GDP. And this is the time probably 2 decades ago when our gross enrollment ratio was not even in 18 to 20%. And since then we have moved considerably. So that does tell probably the reality of the time when CSR is a 2% mandate and choosing one specific area. In a decade's time, what I'm listening, and it's very heartening to note, that creating entrepreneurs as a matter of social responsibility. And then how it comes from the founder's own experiences, at least 2 or 3 good examples that I can see. So moving on to you, sir, that...
Yeah, thank you everyone. Wonderful, valuable feedback and insights here. So one of the first things I'd like to mention is that this concept of taking a percentage out of your profits and all is not there anywhere in the world. Okay. It is there only probably in some Nigeria where they also have taken some 3%. Everywhere else, they don't believe in this concept. Okay. So it is an exception what we are trying to do here. Sustainability should be not be separate thing added on. It should be inbuilt in every system, process and everything. Not that somebody pollutes a lot and another fellow is trying to take a percentage of his profits and clean up the environment. Okay, that can't be the case. So more and more of these CSR efforts indicate very weak overall systems, which is a dangerous sign. Okay, weak or failed. It is like saying that, oh, electricity is failing. Let's all pool money and buy generators. You have to ask the question why electricity was failing, first of all. Container should ask the question why people are having to pick up rags in a station. Why is it systematic failure? And why we are having to mop up all this money when only 3% people are paying taxes, others are not paying taxes. These are fundamental, very huge problems which we are trying to add, saying that let me pick some money out of here, pick some money out of there, this societal problem. Why are people not getting educated? Why are people not getting the health care? These are some of the basic fundamental things that we need to ask, which means the society is not ready or many fundamentals have gone now. Let us all, sewerage is not there, let's all pool money and build one sewerage. Okay, these kind of things don't speak well of the society, first of all, as the first basic assumption. So you're trying to do more and more and more and more CSR schemes, meaning that something else, major systems which are supposed to function in the way which they are all failing. Okay, having said that, now let's take, there are various levels and layers, policy-wise, and various different ways, and all are required. Supposing some calamities come on the nation, like a pandemic or a major earthquake, it is completely abnormal, budgets have gone haywire, then people need to pool in and do all those things that we will do, okay, or some kind of calamity has come. But so what I meant was that if top level they decide that there are many things which are top mandates, they themselves can collect this 2% and deploy into various different top level channels, but that has to be done in an efficient manner. Now you get where I'm heading at, right? So now when it comes to the people and all that, my humble submission was at least stick to your areas, because every area is very complex. Okay. So what happens is that was the reason behind I said that stick to your area. Secondly, invest in technology also, which has a multiplier effect. Sorry. Yeah. So that's what I feel, that collaboration, if it is worked out and frameworks are presented from the government to the corporation, saying that this is what we recommend, this is the framework and all that, but you do, then that would really be very good Thank you.
The whole point why we're sitting and talking here is because government failed. Talking about again giving money to the government and making do, I totally don't think that is worth our time here. So 3 things for your question, primary question, Professor. Empathy based in reality for the leadership, which will transcend with funds or otherwise, with a catalyst in the society out there. Please don't go and try and paint the walls. You ain't the expert. Use guys who will do it, who will fetch the schools and create that as a system. So continuity and sustainability. Last but not least, Sir has pointed out that spirit of empathy should percolate to everybody on there in the system forever. It is not one guy saying, all the million following. Those 3 will make it a institution which will last forever.
I think one point that he made in the first part of the conversation around how do you actually measure the impact of the activity that you're doing? I think that makes it very imperative to change the metrics by which you measure. It should not be how many people actually spend time, to his example that he gave. It has to be how many people actually benefited out of it, right? And it's not about how many people just took part in your program that you ran. What happened to those people after is equally important. It's not just about the money that you spent in running that activity. What actually transpired after that activity is what is important. And I think that's where once we start measuring that and syncing it back to the leadership, I think that's where the sustainable change will happen.
Thanks for that. Yeah. So I'll start with the bottom-up approach. As you said, you can't force some ideologies onto other people. I would say that be it startups or be it corporate companies, you empower the individual to think on his own, because all of us come from very diverse backgrounds. So that's the beauty of the country, that we come from different backgrounds, be it culture, religion, and economic status there. So each one of us have seen the life what we have gone through. So we know our problems much better in my own area, my own village there, than somebody coming from another part of the country telling me what to do. So I'll go back and educate or empower the individuals to think about it and come back. As you said, you build that empathy nature in that individual, educate that, only then you'll see the results coming. It's not something you can drive it down to people saying you do it. So I'll still go for it.
Yeah, Vin, thanks for all the thoughts. Just speaking last obviously has its own demerits, but most points seem to have been spoken. But I'll just summarize on points that I agree with, and then points that I have a different opinion on. For one, I think there are enough causes to fight for. There is no dearth of causes to fight for. I think, sustainability is a definite, you'll have to be sustainable. Otherwise, it's not going to work in the long run. I agree that you don't need to do everything. There are specialists who can do stuff. Please use them. Let's not try and, get our hands dirty, because you're not the experts in that. Totally agree with that. I sort of tend to agree that the KPIs are the ones that sort of are the reasons why people are not sort of, using CSR or creating the impact that CSR should create. I'll say that unselfishness is more paying if you practice it in the right manner. If you were to truly look at it that way, it will be sustainable. You will be able to create an impact. In fact, I have seen cases where you have no dearth of funds. It's just the time that you'll have to spend on it. It's very hard that there are instances where we were given a lot of money for all the good work that we were doing. We could not even accept that money. There was no way that we could do it. So I think we'll have to reverse the way in which we'll have to look at the KPIs. The leaders should sort of bring that conversation into the boardroom where they're saying, this is the real impact of CSR activity for us and for the larger society. And if you're able to communicate that effectively, I think, all else don't matter. Money is there, causes are there, ways to work are there, everything else gets taken care.